The meeting doesn't start till 6 o'clock, so you got about 3 minutes. There's agendas Marlene has put on the chair over there. If you, okay, you know the agenda? The next thing we need to know is what merit badge are we working on tonight?
Yes, we were working on.
Step up to the microphone.
I'll turn it on for you. There you go.
And tell us your name.
My name is Ben Hessick, and we are working on the Citizenship of Community Merit Badge. So,
Are all of you working on the same merit badge?
I believe so, yes, and we are knocking off the requirement 3. So,
So how many requirements are there on this merit badge?
in total, there should be 8 merit,
Eight?
8 requirements.
And this is one of 8.
Yes,
Okay, well, welcome. We're glad you're here.
thank you.
Hey, Thomas, why don't we do the storage first? And that way they can leave, and then we just hear talking about 3 sisters. Whoever, the person, who there, he's Mike.
He's with the store.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so let's get started. Marlene, you want the evacuation? You got it?
Before we get started, let me read the emergency evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency evacuation, an alarm will sound. Everyone should exit the building by way of the nearest stairwell in a safe and effective manner. If the nearest stairwell is blocked by smoke, use the other stairwell. Do not use the elevator. Once you have reached the main floor, follow the exit signs to exit the building and quickly proceed away from the building. Please be mindful of others evacuating and of emergency vehicles.
Okay, thank you. The next item is we need everyone to turn off your cell phones. That includes those of us up here. Okay, roll call.
Larry Chesney.
Here.
Bruce Damrow. Joe Everett.
Here.
Stanley Hedrick. Here. Brian Key. You have a quorum.
Okay. First item on the agenda is the approval of the last meeting minutes. Do any of you have any changes you want to make to the minutes that Marlene sent to us? Any changes? Do I hear a motion to accept as approve as written?
Motion approved.
Stanley's motion to approve. Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. In the agenda, we're going to go to item 2 first, and that is the one for the American Garage Storage at 645 Nelson Lane. Okay, Thomas. For those of you that haven't been here before, the process is that as we address each item, Thomas will give us a very, very brief overview, and then we'll ask anyone that's in favor of that request to come to the microphone and explain that to us. And then we will ask if anyone is opposed to that request, and we'll have a discussion. And then the board members themselves will discuss. This is more of an open meeting, a discussion, rather than just a presentation. So you may hear some back and forth between us and those that have asked to speak tonight. So, Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to just make one note for the record, not pertaining to this, but the item that was subject of last month's meeting, it was in the minutes, the cellular tower request. The applicant has withdrawn that request. So since you tabled it at the last meeting, I just wanted to let you know that it's no longer on the table. It's been withdrawn. So just for y'all's records. That said, we'll jump into Mr. Gaddis's request here. This is 645 Nelson Lane. Mr. Gaddis, who is here tonight, he has an existing mini storage facility out there, and you all have seen it a few times over the years. I think back last fall, actually, we did another amendment to add the covered RV storage on the adjacent property. But the reason for him being here tonight and the reason for going through this is as a special exception, it has an approved site plan that goes with it, and so that site plan sort of locks it in place as you all have approved it. So any changes or amendments to that have to come back before this body for you to approve any revisions to it. And subject to this request, Mr. Gaddis is wanting to do their modular storage units, I think up to 14. We're going to call them portable because and Mr. Gaddis can explain that a little more, probably more eloquently than I, but that's how they're sold as a portable unit, and that's because it's modular, it's self-contained. Due to some building code issues and things like that, we're actually going to have to treat them a little differently, and he's going to have to go through the building permit process, have them all inspected and tied down and all that good stuff. But I'll let him speak to that a little bit. From a site plan and zoning perspective, which really is the point of this meeting, just wanted to point out that they would meet setbacks, and that all of our industrial and commercial design requirements of section 715, those would apply to these, and Mr. Gaddis has stated that he would be able to make that work. And he's also going to utilize some existing landscaping that's already out there, as well as some new landscaping that would more or less shield most of them from view from the road. There's no lighting proposed as part of this, and as mentioned before, he would have to get building permits for them, and staff would review for compliance with all the applicable zoning and building code and so on and so forth before we issue any permits. Thank you.
Anyone here in favor of this request?
Thank you. I'm Mike Gaddis, and I'm...
Mike Gaddis.
Yes, sir. And I'm the one proposing to do the portable storage. We had taken it, brought before you before, doing permanent storage, and got that approved, and then started studying the portables, and the portables have some advantages of tax laws, new tax laws and things like that, and the life of them are just as long as the existing if you built permanent storage, but this way you can put them in areas that are easier to access. What I'm doing, I've got a RV storage facility back there, and this will be like a fortress along the fence, and the people that have the RV storage can still get in and out, but it gives me an area to put these where normally, you know, you wouldn't put a storage to block their entrance, but this will not block their egress. It'll be kind of just along the road like a fence if you've seen the plan there, and that's pretty much what we're doing. It's a kind of a new, not really new, it's been around for a while, but not a lot of people in the area have done portable. They've always done permanent, and this gives me kind of a, in the future, if something more appealing is needed or that land is worth more for something else, then we can take those up and use them in another area or something. So
Mike, what kind of foundation do you put these on?
they'll all be built on, it'll set on top of the ground on a gravel area, and they'll have their own foundation, their own 5 4x6s, then they have 2x6 floor joist, and then flooring on top of them, and then roll up doors just like a regular storage, metal siding that'll match my existing storage, because that was one of the keys. I didn't want it to look like something odd. I want it to be conforming to the rest of my facility. I've tried to make a appealing, nice facility that's important to people, that my clientele that I'm looking for to, and so it'll look pretty much just like what I've got already.
So you grade the dirt,
Yes.
put gravel down, and set this on the gravel,
That's it.
and the customer has a step up to get into it.
What we'll do is we'll put gravel and ramp it up in front of it so that it's not a step or a hazard, a trip hazard or whatever, and they'll be able to access it just like walking into their front door.
Okay. And on the drawing that we have here, you're lining them up here on the right.
Correct.
So as you're going out 321, and you go in your entrance, it'd be back to the left, back behind your RV storage.
Right. Be at the very back of the facility, up against a pretty steep grade there, where we dug out back years ago, and be very little visibility where they're sitting. And as Thomas said, I plan on putting some other vegetation back in that corner that you probably won't even see the buildings.
Any questions for Mike? Anyone here opposed to this request? Okay, so gentlemen, question?
You say you can have a building, why do you have to have a building within a portable structure?
That's a building code question. Unfortunately, I can't answer. It was our,
So that we get on tax rolls?
I think it's due to our adopted building codes, IBC, and because of the occupancy, because they're open to the public. But that's a speculation. It was our building official that said they needed a building permit, so. Yes, sir. Yeah, zoning and building aren't the same, but so they will come with engineering with them, but the building inspector will have to check. Again, because it's commercial, he's going to have to look at like ingress and egress, those sorts of things. He's also going to have to look at how they're tied down. They've got to be tied, and I think they'll probably use like mobile home ties, the big screws that go down in there.
Right.
But
When I talked to Jeff about it, that was what Jeff was going to require, that they be fastened down just in case of tornado or high winds or something, that they weren't flying around. So, yeah, if somebody backs into them, well, it happens. But I've got cameras, so I'll know who backed in, hopefully.
Yes. Yes. Your request is approved. Good luck to you.
Thank you. 321. Thank you.
Yeah, the next one is Three Sisters. Those that are obviously each one of those roads, Three Sisters is off Wood Road.
You ready? Yes. All right. Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman. Just one thing I wanted to note on this one, in the staff report, I had noted that a representative from the development would be at the meeting to discuss changes. Unfortunately, he was unable to make it tonight, and he asked that or that you all rather, accept his memo as his statement and his description of the project. So, that said, this is, we do this about every 6 months or so, it seems like. And just for the benefit of everybody here and for the board, this Three Sisters project was approved about 10 plus years ago now as a master plan. And as they're actually moving along with the development of the project, technical constraints and where the roads actually end up and slope and topography and all these sorts of things. Once they actually get on the ground and see it, sometimes they have to come back and sort of tweak that plan. And so, like I said, it's about every 6 months, it seems like we're here just tweaking lot lines and moving things around. And that's exactly what this is. And Mr. Smith in his request has outlined the changes to the plan and the relevant sheets in the plan set and where the changes are. He noted that there was no additional density being requested, so no additional units, just sort of think of them as puzzle pieces, just kind of moving them around a little bit on the board. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Sheet 3, dividing 2 units into one larger unit, and adjusting the boundary of 2 others to make them larger. And then sheet 4, where we taking 3 units and splitting them into 7. So in one case, making the lots slightly larger, and in the other situation, we're making them slightly smaller. And if you go back to the first page of the handout that Tom carried tonight, look at the building setbacks, those two are valid, which gives the front setback 30 feet, side 20 feet, and rear 40 feet, which is pretty generous. So, as Tom said, it's my understanding once they get the road in, and they look at the view from that particular lot, then they decide to either make that particular parcel larger or smaller.
One other thing I'd like to point out, Mr. Chairman, while we're talking about setbacks, something that the reason why we keep calling them units, everything he says is units, is because actually it's one big tract of land. So there's a little bit different rules that apply for a planned unit development. You kind of look at it differently, but you're right, and I think we have to be careful not to call them lots, which they didn't, and we didn't, and so, thank you.
The requirements they put on their customers. They're not allowed the customer to put a house right next to the lot. Which is yellow. Roughly 5,000 acres. Probably going to kick out the side. Okay. Any questions, comments? Can you clarify that for you? Any questions?
Do you have any idea what size of those units that they are manipulating? How much property are they manipulating when they change these particular units?
So I think it just depends, and a lot of it goes back to their, and I do kind of wish Matt was here to speak to this, but their program of which floor plan, for example, they're going to put on, and the septic systems that go with each one kind of dictate how big the lot is, and it's all kind of one thing affects another, I guess is the best way to put it.
The units going into 1 unit, includes 1.05 acres. And 3 units going into 7 units, those vary from 2.5 acres to 10.
So there's still going to be a difference
They're still big.
3 acres.
Yeah.
And the one that's going from 2 to 7, or 3 to 7.
Minimum.
The minimum will be 2.5. And then the other one is going 2 units to 1, is going to be 1.5.
1.05.
Okay, 1.05.
And usually the bigger lots are usually steeper and the smaller lots are flatter. I mean,
I know this is, we've been dealing with this for a long time, and they do make changes about every 6 months or so. I just want to be sure that we're not ever getting in a position where they end up with a lot.
right. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I did fail to mention in my little presentation. I think the last time or maybe 2 times ago, we were kind of concerned about that too, especially from the septic system, from that perspective, because what do you do when you get yourself in a situation where you've carved this off and then lo and behold it doesn't perk there, there's not enough repair area, whatever, and so if it was a lot, we know that it would have to be constrained in the boundary of that lot. Where this is all one big thing, then they're, in theory, they could kind of be right. Yes.
Some of them will be piped down to a general.
Yes. And those systems are engineered when they're for multiple, but I just wanted to point to the board that a couple of times ago we did put that condition on there that is in here, and I'll just read it into the record. Prior to the issuance of any building permits, the applicant shall apply for and receive all necessary approvals from Blount County Environmental Health with regards to the subsurface sewage disposal system for the structure to be permitted. Such approval shall require adequate repair area in the immediate vicinity of the structure to be served and could require proof of easement or similar so as to accommodate such an area on site, which means, and that's why it's in quotes, because we're calling them units, and that was Gary Ferguson's concern, is that one would be on another and there wouldn't be an easement, or maybe this area doesn't perk at all and you lose the lot altogether, and so this condition I think protects the county so we don't get into that situation where we've given our blessing for somebody to build there, and then turns out actually it doesn't work. You are going to have to go back to the drawing board and make a bigger lot, or finagle the lines again. So yeah. Right. And that's a very valid concern, because this didn't go through the subdivision process, which would have vetted all that out before the lots were created, and they're not lots, so we have to make sure that that's very valid.
If it's a plan is developed today, it could be something different.
It's,
Okay, any other questions? Any motion? Motion approved. Second by Stanley.
Joe,
Yes.
Stanley, Larry.
Yes. Motion is approved.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do you hear a motion to, anything else we need to discuss? I have a question about how, it's gone forever, or we'll come back later.
If they come back, they'll have to start from scratch. And
Oh, really?
yeah, it's done. They withdrew the application, so it's no longer in consideration. They'd have to start. Yes, sir. Don't know. I got an email from their attorney that asked to withdraw it, so no information beyond that.
appreciate you guys coming tonight. It was a fairly calm meeting tonight. Some of them are this way and some of them are not. But
This was a good. We were needing something with an opposing view.
So we're going to come up with one.
would you like to oppose one of these?
How many attorneys involved?
But typically, though, we do have pros and cons, and some of them are pleasant and some of them can get heated. So you happened to come tonight when there was no opposition to either of them. But good luck on your, what, does this go to Eagle or
Yeah.
Yeah, all these guys are going to be going.
candidates for Eagle?
There are 3 or 4.
Have you passed your swimming test, life saving? Have you passed that?
Pardon?
Swimming test. I don't know, who's on life saving?
It's not life saving anymore? 50 years ago, you had to pass a life saving.
Right, yeah. We just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, there's certain things you can do, life-saving or emergency preparedness or emergency preparedness. One or the other.
We had to drag a guy out of Norris Lake to pass ours. A long time ago.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.